listening to Let the Beat Build, a music production podcast where I, your host, Marcelino Villalpando, interviews music producers and have them walk us through their creative process. The jazzy laid-back track that you just heard a snippet of is called $4,000, and it was produced by Ewing, whose music has been featured on playlists by Soulection, Chill Hop, and Sunday Sauce, as well as blogs such as Nest HQ and Indie Shuffle. We had a great conversation, and before we hop into it, let's take a listen to some of his music.
The things that we used to do. I'm holding on to feelings cause I'm feeling like I'm still with you.
So yeah, we are like live on Franklin in Hollywood.
Right off Hollywood Boulevard, yeah. Shout out Paul George, my manager, and his wonderful apartment. It's busy around here though.
Yeah, extremely. So I was lucky enough to catch you on this LA trip. It literally happened within 48 hours.
Yeah.
I slid you a DM, and 48 hours later, thanks to Instagram and a bureaucratic referral, we're now here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for coming to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
For those that don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure.
Tell us how you got into making beats.
Yeah. My name's Ian Ewing. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just an hour and a half drive north of Chicago. But music was kind of always a part of my life. Instruments were my introduction to it. So drums caught my ears and eyes first, but my wonderful mother was like, you're going to take piano lessons before you can get a drum kit. And did like a year or so, and then was like, all right, Mom, like time to get that drum kit. So got a drum kit, and drums are my baby, definitely my primary instrument, and the one that I feel that I can speak most fluently with. So was in bands a lot. And, you know, went to college and basically started looking for a software program that would help me make music on my own, because I was so sick of like just having band members like flake out and stuff. Everybody except for Tyler Beck. Shout out Tyler Beck. So found FL, of course, trusty FL, which a lot of people, that's their first program. And yeah, let's just be honest. I got a crack of it. Of course, I got a crack of it. And
that's the only way to get it.
That's the only way to get it at first. But if you're with it long enough, be sure to compensate those developers and pay legit for whatever you're using. I can't say enough for that. But wasn't till about a year later that I was, I started to like find and really get into jazzy hip hop and stuff. Like Pete Rock is definitely one of the first biggest, like, wow, that's what I feel. That's what kind of vibe I want to be on. So getting into like sampling and listening to that era of music and whatever. And
so real quick, so when you first started sampling, were you sampling MP3s? Were you sampling vinyl?
Definitely doing the old YouTube rip route. Yeah,
good old YouTube,
dude. Yeah, I mean,
YouTube
whatever,
MP3.
Whatever your route. Yeah, I mean, of course you want to sample on vinyl, but what a sign of the times. Like, you got a converter website. You're gonna get that, and you're gonna chop that audio file however you can get your dirty little hands on it.
Well, in a way, someone already did the digging for you. You know what I mean? Like, you just gotta follow a user.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, well, it's like those. Did you ever get in touch with those Dusty Fingers compilations?
This sounds super familiar.
Where this guy from New York just dug and made a compilation back in the day, like in the 90s, of all the dopest samples. I don't think he made beats himself, but he just found a bunch of cool samples.
Yeah.
And just distributed them.
Yeah.
And like, I remember I found these and I was like, wow, someone just did my job for me.
Yeah.
So tell me about $4,000.
Yeah.
How did this beat come about?
The skeletons of it, the bones of it were actually from a long, long time ago. Man, I think the drums were the thing that was from the longest ago. I made this drum pattern with like a whole bunch of textures and like atmosphere going on like over a year ago. I had some idea that I was actually going to send to Harris Cole, and it had chords on it, and it was cool, but I didn't like the chords, and I totally forgot to send it to him. But I have done a really good job of constantly going back in my project files, and with all the duds of stuff I make, I'm like, well, these are cool drums. Well, these are cool drums. Well, these are not terrible chords, and then save them as separate ones, and then try and glue them together. But these drums I really liked a lot, and I just could never find an idea for them. But then Travis from Sunday Sauce, shout out Sunday Sauce, had a compilation coming out. He told me I definitely wanted to be involved. I've been involved in their earlier compilations. And yeah, he was just saying, we got that coming out. If you want to contribute a chill hip hop track, I'm like, okay, all right, let's get some working. So, dug up those drums some random day. As I said, I'm a drummer, and I definitely think rhythmically first and foremost. So it's very easy for me to start patterns that are cool to me. There's live room sounding kits, like big kits being played together. Just making percussion and drum patterns in the most unique style I can, whether that's in the sound design or in the things I'm recording or live drums or whatever it is. That one is triplet based, and I love that groove. That's one of my favorite grooves to play as a drummer. I got on there and I was like, oh, this would sound so cool. It's like that's a banging kick that I've had in my old library of just like, pre-processed drums. I love heavy side chaining with the kick always. So I had that whole vibe going as I'm going along, adding just like filler texture things. So like got the Pooba little chop delayed Wampwana going. Just this little sliver and delay it out, like just enough of being like, that is such a unique sound that keeps popping out, but it's not in your face, it's not overly repetitive. And I tuned it in such a way that it was at least hitting somewhat of a stable note. So once I had both the tempo and the rhythmic things in place, added those plucks, it just felt right for it to be not overthought, not overcomplicated, to like go along and like get me down the tonal path of where I was trying to go. Found a pretty cool harmonization of it with some passing chords that I really dug. It's like 3 or so silent instances there. There's a fairly simple sine-based one that has pitch mod on the attack so that it's gliding up to each one. It's like, and then I do kind of preview the main brass kind of sounding synth. And that one is really warm, full-bodied. It's very much that mid-range frequency register chords. And then that airy, very reverby electric piano on top. What that is a Juno electric piano setting that I have. For this track, I used a lot of my new Juno DS61. Really dope. I fell in love with it slowly. I didn't use it a lot right away, but I started crafting more sounds that I really, pretty unique. My best impression of a Catronata bass that I made on Silent. Essentially an 808, but it's just automating the release so you can make it a little more interesting and follow the chords that you're doing while still, when it comes to the big downbeats, having a big blast that lasts kind of like the whole bar or whatever. I had that horn sample, and it was originally at a much faster tempo. it fit over the chordal part perfectly. It was just one of those things, you know, I wanted horns of some kind, and you know, one of those like, oh, it's a gift. Like it's just meant to be. When I was working on $4,000, knew I wanted to make that separate section, and made this with that flute, and it was super dope. That section came together in like 10 minutes. I just found a melody that was not too complicated, just a little bit repeating, but the sound was there, you know, like the flutes just sounded so good. That's the Juno again, the sweet finger bass that I crafted on there with some cutoff so it wasn't too 80s sounding. And I thought that was a very cool vibe, especially how that section turned out. It was a very clear departure. And then it rides out into the outro where I kind of like pseudo solo ride out, just like cool out at the end of the day, you know? What is cool to me is when people are pushing it and making beats into songs and incorporating like harmonic content that's like, oh wow, that's like way more interesting, to me at least. I'm just trying to like keep pushing myself to make things harmonically creative, because I think that's what stands out in the world of beats.
Message sent. Thank you. Goodbye.
Man, I really like this track a lot. I think it's very indicative of your jazzy, laid-back vibe. In your own words, how would you describe your music?
Like feels bangers is what I would call it. Feels bangers. Yeah, I think that's the pocket I find myself. I love a groove to be there. Harmonically, a lot of it sounds really jazzy, and so it's like a bit more uplifting and positive sounding to me, which I love. What I've been doing recently is going much more down like a down tempo vibe and like a reflective kind of mood. Like I was saying before, like I would love like dancing and crying at the same time, you know, like stuff where I love trying to, and I'm just currently apparently in a space where I'm making stuff that is revolving more around not a sad mood. I would say reflective, and like you're talking about 421. That's one I think of like. I don't want people to be sad when they listen to it, but I like you can kind of place yourself anywhere when you listen to it. I think maybe.
Well, it's definitely good driving music, and definitely good. It's definitely very reflective. I mean, as soon as I first heard the track, I just started thinking about my life.
Good. That's great to hear from another, perspective. I think that's something maybe I don't consciously strive for, but it just happens to be something that I gravitate towards because I love it. But so yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to bring up something that we talked about during our break, which is your trip to LA. Living in Milwaukee, you're not always around this much talent. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to know, what kind of progress have you been making so far out here? Like, how's the trip been going for you?
Pretty proud of myself on the progress for this trip. This trip has been crazy busy. It was I opened for Anomaly along with Rob Arujo, and those guys are musical complete inspirations to me. Got to meet them and hang out with them for 3 days, and unbelievably beautiful people, which is a theme of who I meet. Like all the people that I, producers or musicians who I find online, and I just connect so much to their music and they inspire me so much. I end up having the pleasure to meet them, and it's like there is nothing quite better than like really admiring someone's craft and then meeting them, and you find out that what they are at their core is that,
I have this experience all the time. Every time I meet or talk with the producers on the podcast, the music usually reflects their personality. Yeah, which is that happens 100% of the time. You really are learning some stuff that they can't put into words, that is coming from a spot that would never be verbalized, or it's you were really learning some stuff. Right. No, I mean, that's actually my favorite part of the whole entire podcasting process is getting to meet and know people on a deeper level. I know you've been grinding out here like crazy, and you've been finding yourself into a lot of cool experiences. Can you kind of talk about the sessions you've been a part of thus far out here?
Honestly, it's been like I've been really fortunate with the sessions that I've had that have been set up and like, you know, meeting with people that I didn't know before, and that our styles are, you know, they were kind of like purposely step out your comfort zone sessions. But at the end of the day, you know, sessions are very much about establishing a rapport with somebody and trying to just see if you see eye to eye creatively on anything, or even if you just vibe personally. Like, that's the biggest part about it. You know, so much of the work is done probably outside of the studio. A lot of it is just establishing a great relationship with people if you care to do that. But yeah, being in a focused environment like a studio where you're trying to make a whole song in a session like that, that shit is new to me. But luckily, I have lots of instrumentals that I've been making for vocalists that I had prepared, you know, that I wanted to show people, and that's how a lot of them went down. I was playing them ideas, and they latched onto something, and we were able to work with it from there.
I think it's a good strategy that you're going into a session and having them latch onto one of your beats, because it kind of gives you the power in that sense to kind of like gives you, I guess maybe power is the wrong word, but it gives you like a creative advantage. It gives you leverage.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even, you know, I totally know what you mean by leverage, but I don't even know what word I would use, but I feel you. I've been fortunate with these previous sessions that, you know, people were vibing with some stuff that I showed them and we rolled with it, because that kind of instantly took out that unspoken anxiety in the air. Like, you know, it was set up because we checked out each other's music, and, you know, managers
they like you.
Right. And I them, you know, we were like proposed, like, do you want to meet up in session with this person and check them out? And, you know, you're meeting because you at least, you know, dig what each other's up to. But it definitely does help be like, oh wow, they're really into that vibe. Like, and yeah, that definitely puts me in a place like, okay, all right. You know, I've added some initial value in the instrumental, and I always prefer to work with that's something I've worked with in a session where things are quick paced. That's why I would consider it challenging for a producer, is because there's this like unique role, or this line you have to tiptoe between. You want to get something structured and something with enough movement and enough something there where you're giving writers and top liners like inspiration, and they start going with lyrics and certain ideas, but you never want to get in that tedious, like working on your snare for a half hour, because that's not why people are in a room. You know, all that work is for outside of that studio space.
Right.
So yeah.
So like when you walk into a session, what's your own personal approach in the sense of, like, are you walking in thinking like, let's see what happens? Or are you walking in with intent?
Totally. Let's see what happens. That's one of the things that helped me quell the anxiety a little bit. And talking to more people who session frequently, how they perceive it. It helps me perceive music and art much more healthy. I'm like less attached to my music, and I'm less goal driven. And it's more like, music is going nowhere. I plan for this to be a part of my life forever. So this is going to be something that will be around all the time. And this is another day where you're meeting with people, and let's see what happens. Totally. That helps me a lot, just mentally.
So before I let you go, any final parting words?
I'm real big on just sharing perspectives and things I've learned from you know, the life path of trying to make a living being an independent artist, or just trying to be perpetually creative like all the time. And there's like cycles that I've noticed of, you know, you're inspired and you're creative and you're making things that you like, but inevitably you get to a point where things dry up, and then it's really easy to attach all your value to who you are as an artist. And then when things dry up and you're not making music, you feel literally like a garbage human being, you know? But it's easy to be like, my art comes first. I serve my art. But all of that, comes from your humanity. So if you're focusing on yourself as a human first, you're going to be developing yourself as a creative person too. And that helps you in the challenging times when maybe you got writer's block, maybe things aren't flowing, you're not feeling the best about your work. It can just get crazy with the mental and emotional obstacles and challenges with it. And like the feelings of like inadequacy, they're real, but they're an illusion and they're normal and they go away. And the most important thing is just focusing on yourself as like an all-around human being. And that's what I've found gets you through things like writer's block or feeling like you're not being your best creative self. It's because, dude, you focus on yourself first, it's gonna happen.
Thanks for sharing that. That definitely resonates. Like anytime I'm in a creative block, first thing I think is like, man, what's wrong with me? Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And then
what am I doing wrong? Yeah.
Right. Like the answer is always just going back to like your root core values, like kind of just reestablishing those and kind of recharging those batteries and kind of remembering why you're here,
Yeah, 100%.
So what's next for you?
Got several things this year that I'm working towards. Mainly, I have an EP that will eventually be releasing in full in June, but one of the singles off there is with my boy Flamingosis called Young. It came out on April 19th. So that's a single that's going to be it's a part of an EP that's going to release in full in June. Super stoked about that whole project. It's like a little departure from the hip hop, but I'm really excited about it. I'm super, super happy. And another single from the EP will be releasing in May, and then the whole EP is set to drop in June. Those dates will be coming, and I'll be like announcing them and stuff.
Sounds good. Well, definitely keep us in the loop.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Dude, thank you for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
And you want to go ahead and tell everybody where we can find your music at?
Yeah, anywhere on the interwebs, definitely Spotify. Just search my old birth name, Ian Ewing, Ian Ewing. And I always find me on Instagram at Ian Ewing MKE. Also on SoundCloud. And I am on Facebook, but like Facebook's a mess. So yeah, let's just keep it to that Instagram, SoundCloud, Spotify.
Let's listen to $4,000 now in its entirety. Can you introduce it for us?
For sure. So here's my track, $4,000. My name's Ian Ewing from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Hello, this is operator 90209F with an IP relay call. I have a caller on the line who would like to leave you a message, and it reads as follows. Dude, bro, I got some beers tonight and they're totally cold and chill. Bro. Message sent. Thank you. Goodbye.
I want to thank Ian Ewing once again for coming on today's episode and giving us a glimpse of the man behind the music. I also want to thank you, the listener, for hanging out with us, because you could have been anywhere else in this world and you're here with us, and I appreciate that. If you found value in today's episode, please feel free to share with a friend or give us a positive review and rating on iTunes, because that helps other people find the show. Let the Beat Build can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, pretty much anywhere podcasts can be streamed. The show is edited and produced by me as well, so I appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, I'm your host, Marcelino Villalpando, and this is Let the Beat Build. Peace.